delighted to be together. My name is Wahome Ngari. I'm the founder of the Personal Finance Academy. I'm in the financial literacy space and I'm a financial coach. Today we want to discuss finances for home care. When you have a home, there are finances you need for home care. And that's why some people say a home is not an asset because it is going to cost you money all the time. But it is an important discussion for us to have so that we can be able to arm ourselves and equip ourselves as we go ahead. So a home means different things to different people.
That is true.
To some people it's an address. This is the place where you find them. But to some other people it is actually a statement of who I am. But this is the place where you can find the people I love. So it's an important place. This is the place where you keep your valuables. If you think about all your valuable things, they're somewhere at home. And we say the home is your city of refuge. You know, there are places, sometimes the world is rough on you. This is the only place where you can just be on the couch and nobody is going to bother you. You know, it's your place for love and warmth. There's no pretenses. There are no pretenders. They will tell you things as they are. And this is the place where we return even when the world rejects you. And this is the incubation for our offspring. This is where our offspring learn life lessons. This is where everything we do is a lesson. The programs you watch on TV, the talk that you have, the food you cook, the people you bring up, that's where they will learn everything that they need to learn for life. So it is that important if you think about it. So while this is a lovely place that we have, we know it is going to cost us money. So let's look at these issues one at a time. Let's look at maintenance issues. When you own a home, there are things you have to deal with. A lot of people have realized there are things you never thought about, things like termites. You know, they just come, they show up. And you see them crawling. And that means you have to bring in an expert and fumigate the place. So you need money to be able to do that. If you don't do that, they can bring down your structure. We have seen rats invasion, and you know how destructive they are. Which might mean if you're not going to work with rat traps, rat poison, or the cat becomes your friend. And you know now when you have a cat, you have to care for it. You have to give it a nice place to stay. You want your place to look beautiful. So in terms of maintenance, you might have hedges that have to be kept trimmed. You might have flowers. You see, that's going to cost you. Now you have a gardener or caretaker who you have all the time. In terms of maintenance, there will always be repairs. We just come from the rainy season and somehow the water just finds its way into the ceiling. So you need to repair. Something is going to be broken. You know, a key is going to be lost and you have to do something. Some window is going to be broken. And the property needs painting. You know, once in a while you're going to see the paint is peeling down. Maybe water is oozing in. And maybe every 5 years you need to do paint work. So you can see, while you said when I own a home, it's not going to cost me more money. You can actually see continuously, maybe on a monthly basis. You will have some expenses that come in terms of maintenance. If the place has to remain neat and look good, then you have to invest in maintenance. That's a given. The other area that we need to put in money is security. Here we say this is a place where we have the people we love, the things we love. We have to do lighting. I see now most people who own homes are going into solar lighting, and it's expensive, but you have to do lighting. Sometimes you have those lights that are sensitive to motion. So you might actually be hiring a watchman just to keep the place safe. If you're in a gated community, you know, you pay communal fees so that then we secure ourselves. Part of security, I see people keeping in guard dogs. If you keep guard dogs, now they come with their own cost. Vaccination, which is very important on an annual basis. You need to build them a dog house, a very good cage that is strong enough to keep them there. Dogs require care. You know, you have to remember to wash them, maybe to trim them, to walk them. There's all this, and you have to feed them. This is not like that good dog we used to call Bosco. These ones might cost you a bit of money to keep them well fed so that they can also guide you. You might have to install cameras. CCTV is very common nowadays. You see a lot of people putting CCTV cameras. Maybe alarms, burglar-proofing alarms. If somebody comes on, you want to have an alarm. You might need to do burglar-proofing. You want to reinforce security. And this is why we do fencing, and you have to maybe have barbed wire or laser wire on your fencing. So you can actually see it's quite a bit of work. You might subscribe to a security company where you have an alarm. If something comes up, there's a panic button, you press it, they come to rescue you. Again, you have to pay for those. So you see, even in the space of security, there's quite a bit of expenses that you have to incur. We can look at risk management. When you think about you as a homeowner, there are perils on our homes, what we call dangers on our home, and you can never ignore them. Theft is a possibility, and we have to put in quite a bit of effort to make sure that thieves don't intrude. and they don't come in. Fire is a possibility.
Yeah.
It's a very bad possibility, but we know it happens. We read it in the paper, we see it in the news. Riots, are they a possibility? We have faced a lot of riots. When it's political issues, students, when they are not happy, we face riots. There's something called malicious damage. You know, people can just have marriage and they come and destroy your home. And that causes you a lot of problems. We see in water. We saw the consequences water can have. And those are risks we need to think.
Yeah.
Is there something we can do around that? Of course, we have things beyond us. We call them acts of God. We had the tremor the other day.
Yes.
We've seen the consequences of earthquakes in other places. We have seen storms. I think it's Southeast Asia. We've seen a lot of rain and storm. Now we understand landslides, because we've seen landslides, and that can affect our homes. And we've also seen subsidence, I think parts of Nakuru, where the ground was going in and the earth was cutting. All those are risks that when you're a homeowner, you never know when they can happen to you. We also have personal liabilities, because you can have property damage on your own property or the property of your neighbor. Just think about planting nice trees, but the roots encroach to your neighbor's compound and they break their wall. You know, you are happy planting your trees, but they have encroached, they've broken the wall of your neighbor or the house of your neighbor. You know, that's a liability, because the law is very clear. You are liable for that. You planted nice trees, but the branches in this wind and rain have fallen on your neighbor's roof. Now that's another liability. Or you have a perimeter fence, and we saw a lot of perimeter fences coming down. And as it is coming down, there's a risk it can actually come down on your neighbor's car or on your neighbor's property. So those are personal liabilities that come in there. We also have legal liabilities, liabilities that are placed on us on law. You know, the dogs are good, they are guard dogs, they are good, but you know, they can bite other people. You do not have intentions for them to attack these people, but that brings in liability. We have workers who work for us, and the law says what liabilities we have for the people who work for us, the gardener, the house help, all those people working for us. We also have service providers who come to our premises. You know, the Kenya Power guy might come to service your compound, but they are attacked by your dog. Now that's a liability that you can actually be able to face. So we have all those things that we have to think about, because they are liabilities, and we need to say what can we do about those so that we minimize the cost that we do. For people who have young children, you know, children are very exciting. I say the home is where they learn. They've seen you charge the phone, and you know, when you're not around, they try to also charge something, and they can put in a wire in that place. So that's a danger. There are guards that you can plug in so that children are not able to put in. The people who make children medicine, surprisingly, it's all sweet. If you didn't keep children medicine somewhere nicely and they found it, they'll drink all of it at once. So we need to keep it away from them. So you can actually see there are a couple of things. They might cost us some money. Where is the duplicate key for the main door? And a lot of people say it is inside. So if you lost the one you had, what would happen? You would have to break the door. That's a lot of expense that will come. We must borrow my grandmother's strategy. The key was always kept outside with somebody else we trust, so that now we don't have to break the door. If you have multiple doors in the house, you have other spare keys. And the question is, where do you keep those keys? Are you aware? Because sometimes we are called to use the spare key in a very awkward situation. Where are the other spare keys? They are small things that we do, but they help us a lot. So as we are doing risk management for the house, there are basic rules. We always say they are very simple, basic rules that we need to observe. Rule number 1 says, don't risk what you can't afford to lose. If you can't afford to lose your house, don't risk it. Let's consider what we can do so that we don't risk it. The second rule says, don't risk a lot for a little. Let it cost you something to take care of the bigger picture. And rule number 3 says, consider the odds. Always ask yourself, what can go wrong here? Can I do something about it? Yes, I have a nice dog, but what can it do that I don't like? It can bite my neighbor's child. Whenever I keep it, I must secure it very well. So they are basic, simple rules. So knowing those rules, I think now we can say, how do we do the risk management? What risk management does, we minimize the possibility of it occurring, or if it occurred, we want to minimize the amount of loss that it can come with. We want to look at that, and we will want to start with what we call the personal and the legal liabilities. The first one, we talked about our roots, and we said we planted good trees, but the roots are encroaching and destroying our neighbor's compound. Now, the way to deal with that issue is, when you are planting the trees, you need to work with experts. There are people who went to school and they studied forestry. They understand plants and trees. They can tell you, if you plant this tree, the roots will go this way. So it means when you're planting the trees, don't just plant. They are beautiful, you've seen them somewhere, but you need to understand the characteristics. Do the roots go down or do they go sideways? How far do they go? That's how you do that risk management for that. If you have trees already now we're not saying you go and uproot them. We're saying look for an expert. Walk around the compound with them. They'll tell you this is what we do. For this one, I would recommend you uproot it. For this one, it is okay. They'll be able to guide you. Because one, they can either damage your own house, and I'm sure you've seen houses that have been damaged by trees, or they can damage your neighbor's house. The other one are what we call the falling tree branches. This requires regular pruning. So if you are planting trees, you have to consider regular pruning. But even before you get regular pruning, at the planting stage, you can ask an expert. When this tree grows big and it matures, how will the branches behave? Is it likely to be the tree where the branches are going to fall? I'm sure you've seen the blue gum tree. We call it eucalyptus. They grow very big, but along the way, they are not able to hold their weight. And the branches come down. We see them on the roads. They fall on electricity. They fall on buildings. So when you plant those blue gum trees near your building, they will not only mess the quality of the soil, they will actually also risk falling on something. And as you're looking at root encroachment, as you're looking at falling trees, this is also the law. How far can you plant your trees on the border with your neighbor? If you put them very close to your fence, they're going to affect your neighbor, and your neighbor can actually be able to take up issue on that. And this is why we need an expert when we are planting those trees. Now, the other thing that's a big challenge is a slippery floor. And you know, if your visitor was visiting and they slipped, they fell, they injured you, there's a legal liability there. They can actually sue. Just like we are nice people, we don't sue. And sometimes it's not the visitor sleeping. Even you, the owner of the house, you can sleep in the bathroom and fall. And so we're saying you need an expert with tiles, because you need quality tiles. You need to know these are for wet areas, these are not for wet areas. So you work with a tiling expert. We talked about the dogs, and we saw dogs are good, but none of us has never seen an incident where dogs have gone to the wrong side. They've attacked the wrong person. The dogs can be vicious. They are wild, just that we domesticated them. They can turn wild at any point. Sometimes they even attack the owner, especially the bigger guard dog. And that means if you're going to have dogs, then there must be a vaccination program. You must make sure they are vaccinated every year as required. They have a good house that they stay in. You keep them warm, but you keep them secure. They can't break, and that's why when you're building, you need to work with somebody who understands. Some of the bigger, stronger dogs, like the Rottweilers, they will actually be able to bring down all the wood you put in. They've got very strong teeth, so you actually need to do metallic caging for them. So that becomes important. We need to walk the animals. They're very, very important. Now you know you have to create time to walk the animals, because if you don't walk the animals, they get stressed and they actually start attacking people when it is not necessary. You see, now you have to provide. If you can't walk them, you might have to hire somebody to walk the animals. You need to keep them clean, away from flea and all the other things. You have to maintain them. And you know, on your phone, you will have a number of a vet. You never know when you need to call them. Sometimes they fight, they injure each other. Sometimes they get sick, they cost you money, you want to take care. If you look at all those things, they are costing you money. You're a homeowner, you can't ignore them, they'll cost you money. But it is necessary that you take care of them. Now, the other area that we need to take care is the fire. And I'm sure for most people who work in offices, we see elaborate systems to take care of fire. You know, fire hydrants, fire extinguishers, fire alarms. They train people to be fire marshals. They even do fire drill. There's an assembly point. Can you imagine how much effort we do at the workplace? You know, there has to be almost similar effort at home. Because the possibility of the fire is also there. When we think about fire at home, sometimes we have to borrow what we had seen before. If you went to a high school, a boarding school, if you went to college, I'm sure you're going to remember the gas cylinders never stayed in the kitchen. They're always outside, somewhere in a cage. What's the reason? Why are they out in the cage? So that if there's any gas leak, it goes with the wind. If there's any explosion, it's away from the building. Unfortunately, we don't follow the building code. So what do? We keep the cylinders in the house, and that risk is always there. We've seen fires out of gas. A bit of basic firefighting effort. Having a fire extinguisher should not be a big problem. But maybe people with bigger properties will try to have sprinklers. You know, they will have hydrants. They will have fire alarm. The difficult thing, but think about an assembly point in the family, might actually make sense here when we are looking at fire. Theft is a possibility. I know. We live in that part of the world when theft happens all the time. It could be theft by someone, but it could actually be burglary, people walking in. And that's why we like staying living in gated communities. We keep each other secure. We can put a perimeter fence, we can hire a company. So if you're in a gated community, fine, or you're in an apartment, you're fine with that. But you still have to do some work yourself to minimize that. You have to maybe burglar-proof our properties. This is where we keep dogs. We have a safe. If you look at all those things, I have no doubt they will cost us money. But as they cost us money, they keep us safe. Yes.
No.
Now, the other enemy is water. Water, sometimes there's not much we can do, but there's something we can do. I tell people before you buy the property, if you can buy it in the wet season, that's the best time to see. Why? Because you can actually see where the water goes. In the dry season, you have no idea. In the wet season, you see where the water goes. Not only seeing where the water goes, seeing the storm drain. Where does rainwater go? When a house is submerged, the losses are so massive. When the business is submerged, the losses are so severe. So we can actually be able to build away from waterways, and that's why people tend to build on the raised ground and not on the waterways. But obviously we see there are things beyond us. Like we said, acts of God. We had the tremor the other day. We didn't know it was coming. We didn't know what to do. We're lucky it was not an earthquake. But we see landslide. And so if you're in a place that is prone to landslide, I think it helps to get they call urban planners who can help you to see where to locate your property so that you stay away from what the path is. But we've also seen things we didn't expect. Ground heave. We saw this in Nakuru. The ground just gives in and goes under. There's almost not much you can do about that unless you know. We're lucky we don't have storms, but we have lightning. So when we are building, we need a lightning arrest. It is just part of the construction, but what this does is if there was those electrostatic forces in there, it helps them to earth. But if it's not there, the earthing can happen through the house and it tends to burn the house because of the charge that is involved. But eventually, because there are risks beyond us, we do risk transfer, which is called home insurance, house insurance. The insurance people call it domestic package, and this domestic package allows us to have some cover for our private dwelling, for the contents we have in the house, for our liabilities to other people who can be affected, including our domestic servants. And it is well structured that if there was a problem and you needed to live away from your property, you can have money for alternative accommodation. If you are renting it out, then you can recover rent for about 6 months. So it has different parts, and I see we may not be able to look at all of them today. I know we will continue. The first part of it around the building, you know, the protection you have around the building, because you're building, you can have loss of the building, you can have damage. We talk about lightning, we talk about falling trees, you can have destruction. It could be the main building itself or the flat. It could be the other buildings in your compound. Sometimes you have a DSQ or you have a garage. It could be the walls. You know, sometimes the tree just fell on the wall, didn't fall on the house. Or could actually be even the gate. You know, even the gate can be stolen. There are places where people steal the gates or the fences are damaged. So that's the second part, is about the contents, the things that you have in the house. Even if you don't own the building, obviously you own the content in the place. And the contents can be stolen. They can be damaged. They can be destroyed. Here we're talking about your furniture, the household things, and all those things. And we know even a surge in electricity can burn your fridge or whatever. And so we're going to see how that is provided for. We also have another section. It's called all risks. There are many things you own in the house, but you tend to move away from the house with them. You carry them as you go places, and they get damaged. They can get stolen. We're looking at things like your cell phones. We're looking at your laptop. We're looking at your sports kits. We're looking at jewelry. We have what we call workman compensation. If you think about workman compensation, we said you have liabilities for your servants, the house helps, the watchman, the groundsmen, the gardeners, the drivers, all those people. And then we have another section for your liability as the owner. You have legal liabilities to third parties, because your building can cause bodily injury to somebody, can cause property damage, can actually cause death. And then there's what we call the occupier's liability. You may not own the building, but you occupy there. And as a result, people come to visit you, service provider, meter readers, and all the other things. Again, they can suffer injury themselves. They can actually die on premises, or they can get property damage. And you have that loss. I think because we are out of time, that's the discussion we're going to have. For today, we just want to welcome somebody. If you want to join us, 0708 150 137. You can text or you can WhatsApp.